Now we actually have a request as well to open the floor for questions. Din here is going to pass around a mic for those who have questions from the audience, for our panel, or other reactions that we have.
Hi, hello, good afternoon. I'm Bianca Soldua, and actually, before I start, I would like to commend Pantene for making such a very inspiring, but not necessarily inspiring in a way that you say, "Oh wow, I didn't know this," but really for opening the eyes and making it open for debate and discussion. I would just like to go back to what Miss Maria said when she was talking about we bring it upon ourselves, because I really think that these stereotypes or these labeling really doesn't come from a society which, when you say society labeling women, the first thing that comes to mind is men labeling women, which literally, which for me, like you were mentioning earlier, that most of the time, with my experience, it's really women who are labeling women. Sometimes it's not really what we are perceiving because we are made to think that way, but it's basically because it's the image that's being sold to us. And that's why when we have the study, in my opinion, it is why we think women do the laundry. It's because when we see commercials, it's really the women who are doing the laundry. But that doesn't mean that men don't prefer to do the laundry either. And I just think these are basically comments, you know. One more thing is that there's also going to be a debate, I'm sure, about how much is it that it is society and not biology, you know, or society and the gender roles basically shouldn't be perceived as a negative thing, in my opinion. An example would be, I mean, as a Muslim woman, Ms. Amira, I would just take this example because I think it's my perfect example for this situation. In Islam, women are preferred not to be judges in a judicial court. Why? Not because we are seen or the world sees Muslim women as not empowered, but because Islam understands that women are more vulnerable to their emotions rather than men, and that is why they are preferred but not forced. And this is also the same with education. You know, a lot of people think that Muslim women don't really need to be educated. Even Muslim men and Muslim women feel that they don't need to be educated. That's because it is the lack of education or the lack of knowledge that they're supposed to, you know, going back, we bring it upon ourselves. So this really sparks discussion, this really sparks debate, and I hope that more women realize that it's who is stopping us. It's not the labels, it's really ourselves who we allow the labels to be put upon us, you know. So if you would like to comment on that.
Thanks, Bianca. Thank you for bringing up the fight. It's a centuries fight for the right to interpret, because it's both men and women who have the right to interpret the holy text. In the courts that we have in the Philippines, women can apply as judges. So this is a struggle that we're doing as women. You don't judge a woman because she's not wearing her veil. She has to accept it if she wears what she wants to wear. So it is a journey of a woman to wear what she wants and to think what she wants. And this is what women's movements, as ma'am is saying, women helping women would help jumpstart it, the whole process.
Thank you. Do we have other questions? Alexa.
First and foremost, I'm from Miss Carrie and from Miss Valley because you work in education and you work in the business industry. Was there any time when a woman themselves challenges you in your being the boss in the school and in the company? Because personally, one of the things that the reason that in the industry that I work in, I had to be the one to challenge my boss because they weren't exactly comfortable going out of the status quo. I actually discussed this a while ago with one of the members of PNG, and I said, one of the things I had to do to basically put out a story for the magazine was they weren't very comfortable with the idea, but I said, okay, if you're not comfortable, then let's do this your way and my way. I said, let's do a double cover. initially they said it was okay, and when they found out the cost to produce this type of magazine, they buckled down. But in the end, it was like creating an opportunity at the same time. So what's your reaction to those kinds of situations?
Well, I'm constantly being challenged, but I think that's also part of my management style. I do work by consensus, and our organization is very flat. I have an open door policy, and I allow anyone to step in at any time. I don't have a secretary. I do my own Xeroxing, faxing. I walk down the street. I get my own coffee, and so I lead by example. So I also expect. Like in our operations office, we don't have any barriers. It's just tables, and so everybody can, because I feel that that's where the synergy happens. And I accept opinions, and I always tell my people I will not take it against you. So it's part of and parcel of, we're very Western that way.
Carrie?
It's well, my advice, and it's really because how I do it is I negotiate. So if there's anything I always do is I negotiate, and I think we women should remember that it's women, and the women population is one of our biggest biggest negotiation element. I mean, in your case, or in my case, I've got similar cases before where, when I wanna do something, I always say, it's we gotta do this because it's because our readership, for example, are women. So, I guess it's I don't know if that's making sense, but from the way I understood the question is, if you're presented with that similar challenge, and it's usually women. Sorry. So yeah, it's usually the women bosses who challenges you. So how you do it. So like I said, it's always about. Well, how I do it is I just negotiate. So.
We have a question from Josh. Thank you, Carrie.
Anna, you spoke earlier about how we have some of the some women who have fought for women's rights here in the panel today. So maybe this might be a better question to them. I'm looking at the panel, and I wonder if when you speak about women empowerment, if that is something that is also has to do with class, and if is it something that women who are probably from lower income families struggle with more? Is it as easy for them, those who are not as educated?
For me, it's classless, because sometimes the more intelligent a man is, the more biases there are. That's weird, but sometimes in our society, the education that they get means that they have this right to turn things around and make interpretations that may disadvantage the women. So it's not about class, it's about who makes a interpretation of a certain thing.
But do you think it's easier for women in those kind of situations to be able to assert themselves?
Josh, I think it's a great question, because it is true. The class does define how we look at ourselves as women, because, poor women from the poorer section don't feel like they have any social justice, even about their bodies. And we know this from reproductive health, that, they have no agency over their bodies. And as more women are more educated, they learn that they have rights towards their bodies, especially with reproductive health. And that's why it's important, like I said, to
to be in a community with women in solidarity, because these are the women that will go and traverse where they have to go to spread that information to women from poorer sectors of the community, to tell them that they do have a right towards their body and they have a choice about, to say no to a man, or, all the other things that come with being in a relationship.
I don't think it's more of class but education, and it's unfortunate that in our country those two are so interrelated. That is the thing here, and it's unfortunate. The kind of education that you're going to get is often tied to class, but otherwise it would be more, an equal opportunity if you had more education or access to education. Carrie and Natasha, did you want to answer that too?
I completely agree, because I think the question is, are women in certain classes more empowered? Yes, I absolutely agree, but I think it's not because I think it's directly related. Class is directly related to education. So I completely agree with Anna that it's not a question of whether it's class or education, but it is. I mean, it's the same. I mean, if you're in a certain class where you usually get the education, that's why I keep shrugging every time I see that comment in the survey that males should have the preference to get educated more than women. Because that's how we stop it. That's how we that's how we checkmate this.
Marilyn, you have a comment?
I'd really like to say something. I'm really very bothered, extremely bothered by women labeling other women, or women being I don't know what to other women. So before we start blaming ourselves, let's take a step back, or maybe 10 steps back, and then let's see what's the role, let's say, of our upbringing in a society like this, where you have laws that are really very detrimental to women. We've seen that. In PGH at a certain year, or during the past, they had, women who wanted to go to medical school, they had to have an average higher than men. That's a fact. Of course, before, not anymore. But who knows about the administrative barriers? The other thing, in NEDA, you couldn't travel if you're a woman. You have to ask the permission of your husband. No? If you had a 2-year-old kid or something like that. But that has been changed. But what I'm saying is that we grew up in a society like this. Look at the church. Look at where RH law is in the Supreme Court. Look at the debate surrounding RH law. Do you know what they say about women in the Supreme Court? It's horrible. This is what we have. And then now, so before we start whipping the lash on our backs, let's think first about our laws, about the church, about what our neighbors say, about what the media say. What is it like, to see all of these women sprawling half naked, trying to sell gin? These things. Come on, let's just step back, okay? Before we start saying, oh, it's the women's fault also. They blame it on themselves. Okay?
Thank you, Marilyn. Mai?
No, I think we need to pause a bit after what Marilyn said. And definitely, I think in terms of, it's very easy to, when you hear these messages while you're growing up, ang dali-daling tanggapin eh. Kasi wala ka namang boses na maririnig kundi ito lang eh. Pumikit ka, naririnig mo. I think all of you sitting here, all of us, when you go to sleep, you can hear your mother in your head and you want to shut her up, but it's her. You hear all of these voices in your head, and it's hard. Voices that you see on TV, you hear on radio, you see while you walk, you hear when you go to a store. It's a bit hard to tell these voices to shut up. And you break these walls, you tell them one at a time to shut up until you find your own voice. And it's hard, and it's a process, and it's a long journey. And I think it's essential for us, I agree with Marilyn and agree with G, that it's definitely a class issue. And I'm glad that the data in reference to valuation of that women deserve the right to finish university is actually affirmed. But if you refer back to the official data, you will see that oo, ganoon naman talaga kasi yung mga lalaki, hindi naman sila nakakatapos ng grade school. konti na lang talaga yung umaabot na lalaki sa high school. So, totoo din. Pero makikita mo din talaga din dito that women want to break that glass ceiling. There's a desire amongst our ranks. But if you do not have the money, and class plays a big role in that, if you do not have money, and it shows, G talked about our age, and it said it so, na the women who can actually make decisions about their own bodies have to be educated, come from the richest family, because they have choices. And choices, when your choice is between living and dying, that's not a choice. So class, it's a class issue. It's a cultural issue. And it's definitely a gender issue.
Thanks, Mai. We have a question from Nikki Luna, or a comment?
Is it on? Yeah, there. I actually agree. And I'm happy to hear a lot of the women here with their comments and their own experiences. It's very, very inspiring. The only thing I noticed is that there's a lack of diversity. Just like as mentioned just now, parang wala yung ibang class. And these are the people that actually need to be more aware of gender roles and gender bias because they're not like us who are educated and given equal opportunities. And I was talking earlier actually to Pepe, and I hope he doesn't mind, but I told him that a lot of the women from my college in Women Development Studies were very intrigued about this campaign because we don't really hear this, especially coming from a corporate angle. So we were very excited, and maybe the only thing that I would like to see more, and maybe the rest of the WD group, and maybe more women who said it, would be the class C, D, E, whatever you call it, but maybe more diversity because as I was talking to Pepe, these are the women who actually buy their Pantene and sachets. And they have access and they should know more. Like when Felicia was just sharing her story about how she would treat her husband and make him feel like king, I think a lot of women actually experience that at home. And there's this gender roles are, a lot of it are based, of course, in culture, religion, class, socially structured talaga, standards. And if other women from that class could only hear that, oh, other women from different class pala, upper class, even experience that, makaka-relate sila. And there would be a good flow na connection, hindi lang parang iisang class. Kasi ngayon, it just sounds very elitist. You know, all of us are just all educated. And we're very lucky. Pero our roles is we belong to a developing country. And I think our roles as women should help other women develop economically, independently, and their whole well-being. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, you have a comment as well.
Yes, hi. My name is Libay and I'm a queer rights advocate. And I just want to add actually to the discourse, no, na siguro more than the gender and the identities, multiple identities pa of a woman, no? Like, yun na nga, pumapasok na dito yung diskurso na nag-intersectionality tayo in terms of race, you know, of course, gender, we're talking about it, class, but my question is, where is sexual orientation and gender identity and gender expression? Kasi ang mga lesbiana nagsishampoo rin naman mga te. Hindi, joke. Hindi, joke. Well, no, nagsishampoo rin naman kami mga te. Di ba? So anyway, I used to have long hair. No, I'm just kidding. No, not really. No, but that's the thing, you know, it has to be more inclusive in terms of discussing all kinds of women, where the poor women, where the, yung tinatawag natin, all shapes, not just the mga, yung mukhang model and all of those things na minention ni Ms. Marilyn kanina, yung minention dito, you know, yung mga sinasabi dito sa Twitter feed, no? Kasi ang dami nagpa-participate and sometimes a lot of women's voices, certain women's voices are also being muted. You know, not just silenced, muted. And that's different because beyond breaking glass ceilings, you know, beyond breaking all of those or climbing the corporate ladder of women, blah, 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 we women here in the ground are still fighting
to break the walls within society. Wala pa nga dun eh. Nandito tayo kasi we're marginalized as lesbians. So, yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, you also have a comment or a question?
Yes, I think, well, I'll direct my question to the psychologist on the panel and to the educator. I think now we've established that education is the key to change, to any real change, no? And they say that change takes up to 7 generations, no? Is it real change takes 7 generations. So if we want to incite that change, if we want to inspire that change, I suppose the next question would be, if we're going to start with the younger generations, what are some of those things that we can do to empower the young girls, to teach the young boys as well that women, that girls can do anything boys can do, maybe sometimes even better. So it's, I guess the question would be, what do we do now? What do we do next to inspire that change that takes so many generations, no? Whether it's culturally, whether it's with religion or with reproductive health, no?
I think it's great, right? Because in this generation now, there's technology. And that's already a game changer. I mean, the fact that we're having this discussion and it's going beyond the 4 walls of this room is already huge, you know? I mean, there are people online and already just instigating that conversation will start change, and that's great. This is the quote on my board outside, but the best advice I've ever received was to pursue my passion. And I think that to hammer that lesson, especially to younger women, is so important, because I don't find anything wrong with women who want to stay home and raise their children. That doesn't make them less of a woman than a woman who decides to pursue, you know, the corporate world. That's a matter of choice, and I think that that's what's important. That women realize that they can choose to pursue their passion regardless of stereotypes, regardless of what society is telling them, regardless of anyone saying, you know what, that's not woman enough, or that's not, you know, you can't do that because that's a man's world. So I think it's just realizing that women have the choice to pursue their passion, to pursue what they love. That's the best advice I've received. And I love what I do, and I do it every day, and I feel so blessed to do it. And I think success will come when you're doing what you love. And I wrote this outside, success is the best way to shut your critics up. I don't think anybody else has anything to say when you're on top of the world. And I just want to hammer that home for younger women, that they can do whatever they want. As long as they know that they have that choice with their bodies, with their choice of career, I think that's enough.
On the education aspect, I think it's a serious issue that a lot of schools are grappling with, and perhaps not many schools yet are on the bandwagon, so to speak, but it's a balance that we constantly try push and pull. So on one side, we try to deliver the academic rigor. Why? Because we want our kids to get the highest SAT scores. We want them to go to the best colleges. And so we're shoving down their throats all this algebra, calculus, you know, chemistry, equations that they probably will never use outside the bounds of the classroom. But yet schools are forced to teach them that. And then we try to balance it, and this comes to your question about how to initiate that change and how to inspire them to be change agents. And we balance that with trying to teach them the 21st century skills. And what are these? These are financial literacy, digital literacy, leadership skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, how to be sympathetic, how to strive for, to push for community outreach. So in the realm of a school, we try to embed that into the curriculum. And you cannot underestimate how important it is to teach the children these 21st century skills so they grow up feeling empowered, confident, and with all the skills that they can take with them beyond the classroom and into the workplace. I mean, if you ask, CEOs whether they'll hire, and even schools nowadays, colleges, because I am an interviewer for my alma mater, and you hear story after story after story that if you choose between the straight A student from an excellent, high school, and this other straight, but has no other interest but straight A's and has a 4.0 GPA, and you have another student perhaps with a 3.7 GPA but is president of the student government, is the captain of the basketball team, has invented an application, all schools will get that child, So again, it's that balancing act that we try to do in education.
We have a question from the Commission of the Philippine Commission on Women, Miss Emmy Versosa.
Hi, I'm Emeline Versosa. This is a government agency, and we promote women's empowerment and gender equality. And this is a very welcome experience for me, who doesn't have Twitter and all this. I'm so amazed at the range of feedback. I'd like to invite you all to become my ambassadors or icons and role models for the people that we, for our audiences, no? So I'd like to congratulate Rappler and Pantene for initiating this, and I hope to work closely with Rappler too in the future. Yeah, I'll get the money for you, so we can do more of these conversations. And I agree with all classes, with all the intersectionalities in society. I hope to be your partner in the future. Samira has been our partner ever since, so that we can really promote the empowerment of women across all spheres, social, economic, political, and get more women changing the world. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have some questions coming in from social media. Okay, we're going to see that in a moment. What about women who are further economically disadvantaged and marginalized? How can they empower themselves?
Hi, Chang. I think Chang Jordan is from Women's Human Rights Bureau. Yeah, I have a question actually. Sorry.
Can we ask the panel or even some members of the audience to react to this?
Do I answer that? May I?
Please. Miss
Because we're
Versosa
the
from PCW.
government.
Right.
Yeah, of course my agency is mainly policy making and coordinating. So I make sure that government removes all the discriminatory provisions in their policies, and their programs are aligned with women's empowerment and gender equality. So if we go through each of the government agencies, the SWD has in their conditional cash transfer, which has a lot of comments, but I've actually gone to monitor their programs, and they have family development sessions where their beneficiaries learn how to become more economically empowered, how to raise their families, how to talk with their husbands. And so that's a way of actually starting them off. And you're starting with the very poor, because that's why you're giving them money, because they really totally have nothing. But it's conditional, so they're supposed to attend these sessions, they're supposed to keep their children in school, and they're supposed to go to the health centers. So those are the conditions. So that's just one example, and I can have many other examples of how government is actually trying to empower the more marginalized. What else?
The peace process, for instance, the autonomous region would be preparing for a Bangsamoro. So some of the women are actually thinking of not just becoming just beneficiaries, but actually forming a political party this early to be more politically aware and organizing themselves, women supporting each other. So that's an actual mechanism. Cooperatives, that's one actual mechanism that's happening on the ground. Solidarity groups, crisis centers, where violence against women is being monitored. So I think some of the mechanisms are not complete in their answering their problems. So we need to work more on finding ways by which the disadvantaged can be addressed.
I'd also like to comment on that. We see a lot of social enterprises now on the rise. We've actually been called the Silicon Valley of social enterprise. We have the potential for doing that in the Philippines. I think number one, it's because to empower others, you need to feel empowered first, to be able to reach out and help other people. And we see a sense of being magnanimous and sharing the wealth. That's a whole concept of the social enterprise. I truly believe, this is not anybody else's opinion but my own, but the only true equality is economic. Okay, it starts from there. So when you are economically stable or independent, you can think about getting an education, asserting yourself, all of these things. And having said that, I think that's another way also that we're helping empower other women, moving beyond our circles and empowering those women so they can empower as well their own children, and we can start this generation of change. Any other questions? Well, Marilyn and
Agawan kami.
Okay.
In addition to
We're very active.
No. In addition to becoming economically empowered, I think a woman should also feel, autonomous or independent in her own pelvic zone. If you do not control the area in your pelvic zone, I don't know how far can you go being empowered.
And since we're in that area already,
we're in the hot zone, Mayi. All right.
We were talking about, we were actively participating in this discussion when you flashed I think it was Chai who presented the slides earlier, and there was the topic, the slide on taboo, and we were a bit worried because the discussion there was really just about behavior in relation to another person, and I was hoping to find something. I mean, if you're going to whip it, there's nothing more sensual when you're taking a bath and doing it all to yourself. So I was a bit concerned that there was no question on masturbation, on pleasure. Did they actually enjoy it? Do women feel that we deserve to have, Anna, what do you call that again? Safe and satisfying
satisfying sex life.
No questions about desire. And I was like thinking, when I shaved off my hair, there was nothing more sensual when I took my first shower. And the water was just, it was so sensual.
Okay.
And then, yes.
And this is, your
he
empowerment
agrees.
comes from, your comment on continuing this empowerment was?
Yes, that what Marilyn was saying is that, reproductive self-determination and sexuality, though aside from economic empowerment, is very crucial because this is your castle, babies. This is it. I mean, if you can't enjoy it and you don't enjoy it and you feel that your pleasure or desire is defined by if you're with someone, if your partner is on travel, diba? Sariling kayod yan. And and I think this is also a conversation that we need to talk about because it comes down to women don't want to talk about masturbation. We feel that it's not something that is
Marilyn is covering her ears.
That it's not something that we should do without our partner or anything at all. And what do you think about that, Anna?
Well, I always say that Rappler is the one place where I can say, or my bio can read that she's a sexual health advocate, sexual health educator, and a mother. And I always say the Rappler is the only place where I could begin to do that. At the beginning, when I started to advocate the need for sexual health education and empowerment, sexual health rights in the context of empowerment, it was so difficult. I had to wear two hats, like the ladies were saying here. I'd have to only be a single person when talking about sexual health rights, but I would have to be the mom when I talked about rights of solo parents as well. And then I said, you know what? This was my whip it moment. Sex was why I became a mother in the first place. you can't argue with biology. So I just started to own it, and I found my voice there. That was my sense of empowerment. And people actually began to resonate with both those identities. I have columns one week where it's about safe and satisfying sex life, and the next week it's about how important it is for me to have an open discussion with my daughter about sexual health and sexual education. That is definitely, and you were asking me, an element of empowerment. I get a lot of questions from parents. They don't ask me publicly, how do I talk to my kids about sexual education in the context, again, of empowering them, teaching them boundaries about protecting themselves from others. And I say that you should always have that open conversation. We set the tone with our kids. In my household, my daughter just told me the other day, Mom, I think I should tell you that I found a condom in your drawer. And I said, well, yeah, it's for my collection. I collect these things. She's like, I'm not asking. I know what they're for. I'm just telling you.
And one major action is really unthinking and tabooing a lot of the ideas that we have as women and as men. We do definitely have to look at personal body as a primary issue of concern. You can't change the society without even understanding your own body. So in Islam, as I discovered, it's so liberating to understand and see readings that would actually give a woman the right of pleasure, not just with a partner, but of herself, to discover her own self. And this would be, this would come with reading progressive materials and literature. There's nothing wrong with becoming pleasured by yourself. I don't think that's wrong. So reproductive rights is something that is also discussed in many of our communities, although few, but slowly there might be a generational shift. As we say, it's a generational change.
Actually, another observation in terms of disconnect, Chai brought this up in the survey results about the disconnect between what we say, what we do. There's another disconnect that I'd invite everyone to react to. For such a nation of empowered women, we have two female presidents. First world countries, some of them have not even had one. Okay, we see all these very accomplished women on this panel, but we have very backward laws about basic things that we should assert our rights to from the beginning. Marilyn was talking about our rights over our pelvic zone. So there's also that disconnect for all the empowerment that we have in the workplace and being able to assert ourselves. We have the capacity to do that. There's almost an equal push or restraint on being able to assert ourselves when it comes to our choices, when it comes to that hot zone. Are there any other questions? Oh, yes, Bianca.
Okay, so for me, I just hope that when we're sending out the message for female empowerment or women empowerment, that we remind ourselves to remind other people as well of how important it is that females and males have different roles in the society. I mean, I'll just read a text that a man who really encourages me to do whatever I want as a female and to really break in all fields that I want to break in, especially like right now in the media. He said, no one can deny nor change the fact that there are things that women can't do. You can't compare men against women and say that everyone is equal in his or her ability to perform. The secret word here is respect the role that women can play. That's not necessarily limiting our abilities as women, but we have to recognize that we do have a certain role that God has given us. We are given the role of being nurturing. We are given the role of being mothers, being homemakers. Although we still have to be given the option if we want to succeed or exceed our limits. I just hope that when we give that message out, we include this, as well as when we talk about sexuality. does it alarm anyone that women are becoming more liberated when it comes to sexuality? Because, I mean, not in a sense that we're talking right now. I mean, in another sense where women are approaching men to be, and it is being interpreted as becoming more promiscuous, because this can be potentially dangerous to our health, you know, and being dangerous also to our self-esteem. I'm not saying that it is a bad thing, but doesn't it alarm anyone else that we may become more promiscuous in that sense, if you're going to use that word or that label? And yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Bianca. I think my other comment there is just that the greatest gift of feminism and the women advocates before us was the gift of choice. Now women can choose to stay at home and raise their kids. Now women can choose to be in the workplace and succeed and take it as far as they want to take it. Or I don't think I would be fortunate enough to have my option of being a hybrid of both 5-6 years ago. That's been a gift of both the feminist movement and technology. We have time for one more question, which is on social media. Oh, I'm sorry, G, please, if you wanted to comment, and then we'll go to the question on social media. Sorry.
No, I think that, you know, choice is a difficult word to discuss because, like we're saying, we have choices because of where we're at and, you know, we're educated. But I guess what we can do as women is to help also those people that don't have those choices. And so I'd like to stay away from that word choice because it really, some women don't have choices, you know, and because they don't have choices, then we should be given the opportunity to have government institutions that give these women choices. Let's say, you know, women that are bound to the home because they have no choice. You know, in America, sure, you have this Head Start where if you're working, you can, there's daycare, you know, maybe establishing government agencies that can give women that don't have choices that liberty to actually go find a job.
Although I would say that it's not they don't have choices, it is the fact that they don't realize that they have choices, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know, maybe that is...
Yeah, but that word choice is problematic.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
though
saying.
I agree with that. Although it's just the realization that they think that they don't have the choice. I think everyone has a choice, it's just they don't know it yet.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap up this discussion.
No, Nikki,
Oh,
no.
sorry.
Miss Luna.
I have to disagree. Not everyone has a choice. Everyone just has to survive and thrive. Some women have to be in that position, not because they have a choice. And a lot of our social norms, like gender roles, are based on religion, again, like I said earlier, culture, influences, structured. So, like what you mentioned a while ago, we respect you have God, you know, on your side. But I'm just saying, not everyone can apply that on themselves, especially the marginalized, because they've been trapped by religion. Especially here in our country,
Yes.
it's very, very patriarchal. Okay, that's based on religion. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikki, Bianca, and G for bringing up. Again, this is an open discussion. This really is meant to be a debate. We didn't want to bring people together to just say yes. We wanted an open discussion. This is how we educate ourselves and move forward. We have a last question from social media from Rainbow Rights Project. What's your advice to women who've come to believe and accept the negative stereotypes we hear while growing up? And I'd like to invite each member of the panel to answer this question as a way of wrapping up as well. Yes, Carrie, let's start with...
So what's my advice to women who've come to believe and accept the negative stereotypes? It's tough. It's tough to just say, just don't accept it. Doesn't make sense. I think that's probably why I said earlier that women help women, and and I agree with her that yes, some women do not have choices, but for those like us who have choices, I think we have a responsibility to give those without choices the opportunity. So women helping women is also women empowering women. And this has nothing to do with just you being in government and being able to create laws and policies. I completely agree with that. It's exactly what we need. But the other, because that's how you accelerate things, and this is not just about laws on discrimination, but really how do you really promote women and women empowerment. And in my world, for example, it's about not just giving equal rights to men or women, but to some degree giving some advantage to women. I think that's very important. So, and it has nothing to do with because we're thinking that women are kawawa naman, but I think really that's women empowering women, and that's women helping women. So, and I guess I will answer this by saying that yes, there are, you cannot just accept it because people like me and many others, are here to help. So that's why it's a tough question, but I guess that's the only way that I could answer that.
This is a difficult question, but I'm just going to pull out and use my experiences. So basically, the reason why I studied monkeys, and it seems so senseless, was we wanted to study behavior in humans that were evolutionary. And stereotyping was one of them. So we found that even monkeys, so even, this is something that has evolved in humans, so it's something deep-rooted in us, it's genetic, it's natural to stereotype other humans. So the way men think about women is genetic, it's evolutionary, and the way we women also think of ourselves in society is largely genetic. And the reason why we study this is because when you understand what the root or the cause of certain behavior is, you understand what possible solution to use against it. And I think the fact that we understand that this is evolutionary, it's genetic, it's not just cultural, is already tells us that this is a serious problem and it needs serious solutions. That includes education, that includes government, revisions in laws, that includes women empowering women. So it's a large problem, and we're not just dealing with society. We're dealing with something that's rooted in humans, so it's a little more complicated. But the answer to this really is it's not just personal. I think all of society needs to help change this. But I think the good news is the knowledge that it is deep-rooted or deep-seated in us should help us shape our solutions to this problem.
Thank you, Natasha. Kelly?
My advice would be they should watch the Rappler streaming of the WHIPIT forum because really this will open their eyes and give them a sneak peek that they can be empowered.
I'd like to wrap it. Let's make a playground of varied sounds. Let's turn our silence into productive sirens. Hey, people of Philippines, let's work together, not against the men, but with the men. Good afternoon.
How am I ever going to follow that up? Kakanta na lang ako. Dance. I think everything's been said here. I encourage that we have more of these discussions. Being part of something like this feels so empowering to me, that we are able to discuss this among women, that we're able to identify how we think the way we do. And I think that is a very, very big start to really breaking the barriers. So I'm honored to be part of this esteemed panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all the... Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much to all the ladies here. And I just wanted to, I cannot resist commenting on that question about, turning around negative stereotypes that we grow up with. And I'm going to link this to what I said outside on my placard. I said, they told me I was just a single mom. And after that, I learned how to turn the negative into the positive. You can always look at the negative and turn it to a positive. It just takes so much more extra work sometimes. I'm going to end by saying that because here at Rappler we have empowering and inspiring sessions and we make this a platform for open conversation, we're going to continue our conversation on WHIPIT as a call to action that evokes a sense of empowerment and urges women to cast aside labels and be the best that we can be without hesitation or fear of judgment through a weekly series of stories and conversations. We're calling it WHIPIT Wednesdays, and it starts tomorrow. This is going to be an open, continuing conversation, and I'm sure we'll be able to tackle and include the other segments that were brought up here. The LGBT segment or the other class, the marginalized women, and how we can extend this concept of empowerment. I'd like to invite everyone to literally take down those labels in front, and let's show ourselves how we can whip it. Let's own it, ladies. Thank you for thank you for joining us today. And before you go, our members of the Rappler team will distribute tokens of inspiration to help remind you not to let labels, especially the ones that we impose on ourselves, hold us back. Always be strong and shine, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to our panel for joining us as well.